I really, really wanted to like Pathology. This sounded like it would really appeal to me. It sounded amazing, and unfortunately, I really didn't like this. This was released in 2008. It's directed by Marc Schölermann, written by Marc Neveldine and Brian Taylor. And it's about some medical students who decide to try and commit the perfect murder. And that sounded very dark and very exciting. I love medical-based films, so that really appealed to me. And it got off to a really strong start. The opening scene really helps viewers know whether or not they have the stomach for this film. Because in the opening, we see medical students playing with corpses, to put it bluntly. And the film definitely relies on the shock factor more than anything. And I think that opening was actually very well done, very powerful. Immediately I thought, this appeals to me, which sounds like a strange thing to say, but I have a stomach for that kind of thing. In film, I don't know how I'd cope in real life, but with this kind of film, I think that the level of gore, the attention to detail, we have a lot of guts in this, and they don't shy away from that. So if that's something that fascinates you in film, then that part of the film might appeal to you. I will say that's the bit I enjoyed. I didn't like this film. I didn't like it at all. But that bit I thought was done well. How much they didn't feel the need to shy away. But at the same time, that might work against the film, because I feel like there was so much of that in moments when nothing else was happening, that I feel like they are just relying on the shock factor. Oh, look, here are some students doing some things with some dead bodies. How shocking is this? And yes, that does work. But everything around it is so boring. And how can a film about murdering be boring? Well, the film succeeded. It's very, very dull. There were a few times when I thought, okay, this is getting a little bit interesting. That never lasted for very long. But even in those moments when I thought things might be going in an interesting direction, the characters are terrible. Some of them I just find boring. Some of them are actually insufferable, to the point where I hated watching them. And that meant that even when the narrative might have been a little bit interesting, or seemed like it was going in a direction that could be interesting, because we have some really insufferable characters at the heart of the story, it means it's not a pleasant experience to watch. So unfortunately, while I could have absolutely adored this film, a weak narrative and terrible characters meant that it was almost unwatchable at times. And it does rely on the shock factor on a lot of occasions. And personally, I found that quite appealing. But that wasn't enough to save the film. All that being said, if it sounds like a film that would appeal to you in general, then maybe give it a go. You might enjoy more of it than I did, and if you do, that's fantastic. But personally, I found the narrative to be very badly written, and the characters to just be either boring or actually almost making me want to turn the film off. And unfortunately, the shock factor, the fact that they don't hide away from gore, was not enough to save the film for me.